On January 24, 2026, a 37-year-old ICU nurse named Alex Jeffrey Pretti was shot and killed by federal Border Patrol agents on a Minneapolis street. This is the story of what happened that day, why it sparked national outrage, and how witness videos directly contradict the official government narrative. The context: Operation Metro Surge. To understand this shooting, we need to talk about what was happening in Minneapolis at the time. In December 2025, the Department of Homeland Security launched what they called the largest immigration enforcement operation ever carried out, Operation Metro Surge. They deployed between 2,000 and 3,000 federal agents from ICE, Customs and Border Protection, and other DHS agencies to the Twin Cities area of Minnesota. By the time of Pretti's death, more than 2,500 people had been arrested. Federal officials claimed they were targeting dangerous criminals, murderers, rapists, and gang members. However, according to their own numbers from January 2026, only about 5% of arrestees had records of violent crimes. The operation created chaos in Minneapolis. Schools went into lockdown. The Minneapolis Police Department had already worked more than 3,000 hours of overtime dealing with the federal presence, costing taxpayers an estimated $2 million just between January 8th and 11th. Armed, masked federal agents were conducting raids, and tensions between federal authorities and local officials were reaching a breaking point. The first shooting, Renee Good. Just 17 days before Pretti's death on January 7th, another 37-year-old Minneapolis resident named Renee Good was fatally shot by ICE agent Jonathan Ross. Good was a mother of 3 and a U.S. citizen. Video footage showed her vehicle stopped in the street when Ross walked around it, then fired 3 shots as she attempted to drive away, killing her. Federal officials, including President Trump, claimed Ross acted in self-defense because Good tried to run him over, but Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey watched the video and had a blunt response. "Having seen the video myself, I want to tell everybody directly that is bullshit." He told ICE to get the fuck out of Minneapolis. Governor Walz proclaimed January 9th Renee Good Day. The killing sparked massive protests, with thousands marching through downtown Minneapolis despite sub-zero temperatures. On January 23rd, just one day before Pretti's shooting, Minnesota held a statewide general strike to protest ICE presence and violence. This was the atmosphere in Minneapolis when Alex Pretti was killed. Who was Alex Pretti? Alex Jeffrey Pretti was born in Illinois and later attended high school in Green Bay, Wisconsin. He graduated from the University of Minnesota in 2011 and became an ICU nurse at the Minneapolis VA healthcare system in 2021. By all accounts, he was passionate about helping people. His father, Michael Pretti, said Alex cared about people deeply, and he was very upset with what was happening in Minneapolis and throughout the United States with ICE, as millions of other people are upset. He felt that doing the protesting was a way to express that, his care for others. A colleague who knew him since 2018 described him as someone who, within minutes, puts people at ease with his humor, smiling, quick with a joke. He was an avid outdoorsman who loved mountain biking with his recently deceased dog, Jewel. Importantly, Pretti had no criminal record beyond traffic tickets. He was a lawful gun owner with a Minnesota permit to carry a concealed handgun, though his family said they'd never known him to carry it. The morning of January 24th. Around 9:05 a.m. on January 24th, 2026, Border Patrol agents were conducting what they called a targeted operation at the intersection of 26th Street and Nicollet Avenue in South Minneapolis. They were reportedly looking for an undocumented man with a criminal history that included domestic assault and driving without a valid license. Alex Pretti was there as a protester and observer. Multiple videos from different angles, verified by news organizations including the New York Times, CBS News, and Reuters, captured what happened next. The videos show Pretti holding his cell phone, recording the federal agents. Then an agent approached a woman and shoved her to the ground. Pretti stepped in to help her. The agent pepper sprayed him. What happened next became the center of a massive dispute between federal authorities and everyone else who watched the footage. What the videos show. According to the Department of Homeland Security, Pretti approached Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. They claim he violently resisted when officers tried to disarm him and that an agent fired defensive shots while fearing for his life. But here's what multiple verified videos actually show. Pretti was not holding a gun when agents confronted him. He had his cell phone in his right hand. Multiple masked agents, Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey said he counted more than 6, dragged Pretti backward and tackled him to the ground. During the struggle, an agent in a gray jacket can be seen reaching into the pile of bodies. He emerges holding what appears to be a gun. The gun DHS would later photograph and claim Pretti was carrying. Someone shouts, "Gun, gun." Then, critically, the agent in the gray jacket is seen turning away from Pretti with the gun in his hand when the first shot is fired. Videos show an officer with a gun to Pretti's back as 3 more shots ring out. Pretti slumps to the ground. A gun owner's advocacy attorney who reviewed the footage raised a crucial question. If the gun had already been removed from Pretti, what justified the shooting? Officers have to have been in reasonable fear of imminent death and great bodily harm, he explained. At the time that the shots were fired, he had been disarmed seconds before. The family released a statement saying, "Alex is clearly not holding a gun when attacked by Trump's murdering and cowardly ICE thugs. He has his phone in his right hand and his empty left hand is raised above his head while trying to protect the woman ICE just pushed down, all while being pepper sprayed." The immediate aftermath. After the shooting, federal agents attempted to take control of the scene and even tried to dismiss local police. Minneapolis Police Chief Brian O'Hara refused. Hours later, DHS officials blocked both local police and the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension from accessing the scene, even after they obtained a search warrant from a judge. Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty filed a lawsuit to prevent destruction of evidence and demanded access to the scene for investigators. She told the public, "I will not rest, my team will not rest, until we have done everything in our power, everything within our authority to achieve transparency and accountability." Within hours of the shooting, before any investigation had even begun, White House advisor Stephen Miller claimed without evidence that Pretti was a domestic terrorist who tried to assassinate federal law enforcement. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem held a press conference where she displayed a photo of the 9mm handgun and 2 magazines she said were recovered from Pretti. She repeated that agents acted in self-defense, but neither she nor Border Patrol Commander Gregory Bovino would state whether Pretti had actually pulled the gun or where it was when he was shot. The reaction from Minnesota officials was immediate and forceful. Governor Walz said after reviewing videos from several angles, "I've seen the videos from several angles and it's sickening." He called the federal self-defense narrative nonsense. The wider impact. Over 100 protesters assembled at the shooting site within an hour. Federal agents fired tear gas and stun grenades in clashes with demonstrators. At least 1 person was pepper sprayed and 2 protesters were arrested. Protesters chanted, "I smell Nazis" at the federal agents. The NBA postponed the Minnesota Timberwolves game against the Golden State Warriors, scheduled for that afternoon at Target Center, less than 2 miles from the shooting site. The league said the decision was made to prioritize the safety and security of the Minneapolis community. The Minnesota National Guard was activated to help local police maintain order. Restaurants along the street where Pretti died opened their doors to protesters and offered them coffee. A GoFundMe fundraiser for Pretti's family raised over $230,000 in just the first few hours, eventually receiving more than 6,500 donations. The Minnesota Organization of Registered Nurses released a statement, "Today our nursing community is grieving. We have lost a fellow registered nurse to an act of violence connected with immigration enforcement. Regardless of where each of us stands on the issues surrounding this moment, the loss of a nurse, a caregiver, a colleague, a human being cuts us deeply." Pattern of violence. Pretti's death was the 3rd shooting involving federal agents in Minneapolis in just 17 days. Beyond Renee Good's killing on January 7th, a Venezuelan man named Julio Cesar Sosa Celis had been shot in the leg by an ICE agent on January 14th. And this wasn't just a Minneapolis problem. According to the lawsuit filed by Minnesota, Renee Good's killing was the 9th time since September 2025 that ICE agents had opened fire on people across 5 states and Washington, D.C. 4 other people had been killed during federal deportation operations during that period. Former Vice President Kamala Harris posted on social media that she was enraged and heartbroken over Pretti's shooting, calling him someone whose life through his profession was dedicated to serving his community and our country. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer announced that Democrats would not provide the necessary votes to advance a bill to fund the Department of Homeland Security following the shooting. The investigation crisis. The investigation into Pretti's death faced immediate problems. An FBI agent who was a supervisor in the Minneapolis field office resigned over how the investigation was being handled. According to sources, Trump administration officials focused the probe more on the actions of Pretti and his fellow protesters than on the officer who shot him. This came after the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division had already declined to open a constitutional investigation into Renee Good's killing, prompting the resignation of more than a dozen federal prosecutors in Minneapolis and Washington. The Department of Justice also announced it was investigating Minnesota officials, including Governor Walz and Mayor Frey, for allegedly conspiring to impede federal immigration agents through their public statements. Both officials called this political retaliation and an attempt at intimidation. Where things stand. At the time of Pretti's death, Operation Metro Surge was ongoing. Federal officials showed no signs of reducing their presence in Minneapolis. The Minneapolis rapper Noor D was violently detained during protests at the scene and later alleged that ICE stole his cell phone while he was in their custody. Minnesota, along with the cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, had filed federal lawsuits against the Department of Homeland Security, calling the operation unconstitutional and demanding it be halted. They argued that the surge violated the 10th Amendment by commandeering state police resources and that agents were conducting warrantless arrests and using excessive force. The lawsuit claimed the operation wasn't really about immigration enforcement at all, but rather political retaliation against a Democratic